sad day to be a San Antonio Spurs fan, but we wish him the speedy recovery and hope he recovers and he's good to go for next season.
The consensus, more people worried about Victor Wembanyama, the person, than Victor Wembanyama, the player. Ernie Zuniga joins me now. And before we talk here, Ernie, I want to show you, we have this going around the newsroom. Garrett Berger actually circulating this around for people to sign, and so we'll get that out.
One of a kind.
By the way, yeah, a one of a kind Ernie Zuniga autograph on there.
No, I was talking about the card, Steve.
Oh, I thought that's what you were talking about. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, so you've kind of been taking the pulse of fans out there. What has the reaction been?
Well, you know, this happened right at lunchtime, and we got out of here really fast and didn't have to travel very far to find Spurs fans. In some cases, we walked in on a couple of guys who quite literally were talking about this and mentioned Chris Bosh. And we kind of politely interrupted their lunch just to say, hey, what do you think about this? And then another couple came in, male and a female. Neither had any idea of what had happened, and I was the unfortunate one that broke the news to them. So you can imagine, somebody brought up the point earlier. I talked to a fan who actually, his name is Elliott. He was named after Sean Elliott.
Wow.
Longtime, lifelong Spurs fan, and he reminded me, it's been a heavy season for the Spurs. When you think about Coach Pop and the stroke back in November, and all of this and how promising this season was looking. I know the Spurs were kind of on the outside looking in for a playoff spot. I mean, it's not like another, kick to the gut, if you will, for Spurs fans this year.
Yeah, and I think, yesterday we're talking about can they get into the play-in tournament. Today,
they've already had, on record, they've already had a better season this year than they did last year.
Yeah, and today we're just, what's the rest of the season going to hold? Are we looking for another number one pick? I mean, do they tank at this point? I mean, there are just a lot of people that are out there wondering what's going to happen.
Selfishly, too, you think about the odds makers had Victor Wembanyama as a Defensive Player of the Year to win multiple awards, but because you have to play 65 games in a season to be eligible for that, so this will end any eligibility. He would have likely won one or more defensive awards.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking back to some of the other major Spurs injuries that we've had. I obviously thought about Pop.
Sure.
And the stroke from earlier. But, I mean, Tim Duncan, the year they're defending their first NBA title, he has a knee injury. Right. He's out. David Robinson obviously gets injured. He's out. That's when Pop took over as head coach from Bob Hill. I mean, we've seen injuries before.
Kawhi Leonard,
Kawhi Leonard. Let's hope this isn't a Kawhi Leonard. But obviously we have seen injuries with Spurs franchise players before, but not like this. Not something that is as potentially serious as this when you talk about this DVT. And I'm saying that from talking to the doctor that we just talked to, and him saying there's a very real danger in this whole thing of, an embolism or stroke or something like that.
You brought up Chris Bosh during the interview, so I quickly went online to refresh my memory, because you're correct. Chris Bosh ultimately retired from all of this. If I remember correctly, he tried to come back. And this is a cautionary tale. This is not to say by any means Victor Wembanyama's career is done. But Chris Bosh tried to come back and ultimately had complications where, in one case, a clot went up into his lungs.
Yes.
And that's ultimately why he retired.
Which is the main fear in this whole thing.
Which is a huge fear. And an embolism, those happen very fast, obviously.
But we're also talking about a 21-year-old.
Exactly.
Very fit young man here who you would think is, able to come back from something like this. And the doctor was also interesting when he talked about the treatment is blood thinners.
Right.
I'm not sure you can play in the NBA if you're on blood thinners.
Essentially, it rules out, again, I was just reading, I'm no medical expert, but I was just reading up on this. So essentially, when you take blood thinners, it eliminates the ability to have contact sports.
Exactly.
So you don't want anybody boxing you out or anything like that, or fouling you. So obviously, that explains why he's not going to be able to play. But just a came out of left field this afternoon and really took a lot of Spurs by surprise.
Well, and then if he does have to undergo surgery, that's a whole different thing.
That's next level,
obviously this news breaking just before noon today. It's something that has certainly shaken up the KSAT 12 newsroom. I can tell you that, as well as the city of San Antonio, and like I said, the whole NBA world. Was there one thing in talking to fans that came across more than anything else for you?
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There were literally a couple of guys we talked to who were kind of like getting choked up, like they had just found out minutes before when we got there, and just coming off of the All-Star break that Victor. I mean, he was. I think Larry even alluded to it. He was the talk of the Bay Area, right, during All-Star weekend. The sky was certainly the limit. The awards could have been coming in the postseason, and I think just the fact that nobody saw this coming, right? And I think the reaction when people heard, oh, he's out for the Suns game tonight in Austin. Well, he'll play tomorrow or he'll play next week. And obviously that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think there are also a lot of people that are thinking back to those people talking at the NBA All-Star game about what a great guy he is. He's not just a great player. And I think it was one of them said, yeah, he goes to bed at 9 and reads a lot, so that's cool.
He brought a book to the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, so I mean, he is in so many ways. He's been adopted by the city. He's someone that people care about as a person, not just a player. So I think that's kind of what you were feeling when you were out there.
I think you got to believe too. France is got to be shocked. The people across the pond, if you will, and how beloved he is in Paris and France and everything. How they must be reacting to this. Obviously, it's a different time zone right now, but that's got to be tough for them as well.
Absolutely, and of course, this is something we're going to be covering throughout the day, on air and online at KSAT 12.